know you guys are going to roast me in the comments. It's been about 4 months since I've done episode 22, but welcome to episode 23 of Tank Chats. Today, if you know, you know, this is my favorite tank ever. Today we are looking at the early M48A1, otherwise christened the Patton tank used in the Vietnam War. Alright, so, as you can see, we're in the proper fatigues here. The Vietnam kind of uniform regulation went out the window. But like I said, today we're taking a look at the M48A1. This will be your early version of the M48 Patton. So, development of this tank started in 1953. So actually this vehicle was developed in 53, came in service in 1957. You will first seen these on the borders in Germany in the late 50s. So that was its first kind of, not necessarily combat debut, but its first service with the US military was in Europe. However, you guys know your history, a little conflict known as Vietnam started rolling around. And as soon as they got the Marines over there in 1965, they started rolling over these tanks, and most of the tanks were already in country by late 1965, early 1966, all the ones that they wanted to send. So these would have been your first batch kind of the Patton tank, because when we get to the later part of the conflict, if you get into the M48 Alpha 2 and Alpha 3, so this is considered an Alpha 1. So this is a very early M48. Now, this vehicle did see service all the way into Vietnam. Through Vietnam, when the fall of Saigon happened, these were left to actually the South Vietnamese and given to many other countries all around the world and remained in service. With the United States, the M48 specifically was upgraded about 5 times. So it's got a pretty long service extension. It was sort of an upgrade to the M48A5, which was basically to make it more on par with the M60s now coming out. The M60s were coming out in the late 60s, early 70s. So the 48 was upgraded. Instead of a 90mm gun like we see on this version here, you would have had a 105, and you would have had a basically kind of M60 style turret on this chassis right here. So that how it's extended into service into about the 1970s, 1980s. By the early 80s, these were phased out in the United States military. The National Guard stole some of the late 70s, but that was about it. Now, in other countries, they were given to Israel. Israel had several versions of this, all the Magog series, as well as the M60s that they received are still actually being used in Israel today in the form of like the Magog Mark 7. So like crazy amount of service life for this. This is a very reputable tank. So with that, with the United States, it was phased out by the late 70s, early 80s. It still actually remains in service to this day with some countries. Thailand is actually still using M48A5s. I know because I was there. But so they still actually have some of these in service. So very reputable service history for this tank. Saw a lot of action in Vietnam. You've heard of the term Thunder Run, is what kind of happened when they would just basically run and gun down the jungle roads and just piss off as many people as they could with canister rounds, HE, machine guns, all kinds of stuff like that. So that covers the history of this vehicle. Now we're gonna hop into the tour. All right, so hopping into the tour of the vehicle here, you guys. As we see, so this being an early M48, it has the boat-shaped hull. Obviously, we're gonna look at that more from the side earlier, but it has a boat-shaped hull with kind of this wedged upper rise. On the M60s, what you'll see is they have just the complete slant, the 45, 60-degree slant. This is more sloped. I guess you could call it more sloped armor. This is rolled homogeneous steel, about 110 millimeters thick on the front, so equivalent to about 4 inches of armor. Same with down here underneath. So it was designed to go against tanks of Russian tanks in the Cold War. So that's what it was designed for. It was not actually meant for the jungles in Vietnam, and these things did have some trouble in Vietnam, and also like in urban combat environments, getting satchel charges dropped on them and all that fun stuff. But I'm ranting. Anyway, right here we have the front headlights with blackout markers and bush guard right here. And no, these lights are not standard issue, unfortunately, although it makes it very vibrant at night. You got iron bolt lifting plugs here for when it's being transported by rail, by ship, and by car. This one we see does not have any markings, but your markings would usually be here on the front fender. On the front, you have the tracks right here, and you have the front plate of the serial number right here. Right here is your driver's hatch. You can see he's got all his direct vision slits right here. Actually still in pretty good shape. This would be bullet resistant glass, quote unquote. Up here, I said this is a sin, but you have the what would be the 30 caliber machine gun. This would either be an M72 machine gun, basically a modified M1919, or very, very late when you saw like the 48A5 come out, you could have a 240 Bravo machine gun there, because those came out around about 76. On this side, you would see over here, they have it welded shut, but that's where the gunner sight would be. So this would be your driver's seat, your gunner, loader, commander would all be in the turret. So that pretty much does it for the front, you guys. With that, we'll hop onto the turret. So like I said, we're gonna hop on the turret, but with that, safety first. Got my Vietnam tanker, trusty Vietnam tanker CVC right here. So we're gonna hop on up. Too old for this crap. So hopping up on the turret, you guys, like I said, designating this an early M48A1, making this kind of what the signifying feature of this being an early M48 is this guy right here. This commander's hatch is not like the one you normally see on the regular M48s or you would see in later models. So this is the early, kind of considered early war version of the Patton tank, because normally you see the big tumor with the machine gun inside it. This would just have an externally mounted 50 caliber. It would go probably about right here. Your guy would be sitting in the hatch, and he would just pivot back and forth on a swivel. So right here's your commander's hatch. You can see his vision periscopes would be right here. All these slots right here would have been his vision periscope. He would have had a periscope right here. And in front of him, right here, this would have been the gunner seat. The gunner's periscope's right here. And as we showed you on the mainlet earlier, right there is where the gunner sight would have been. So the gunner sight would have been right there. You got iron bolt lifting plugs on the front. Sometimes with these Patton tanks, it really depended. Sometimes they would have a canvas cover, as we've seen on other vehicles that I've done. Sometimes they will have a canvas cover on the front of the mantlet, but this particular one does not. You got another iron bolt lifting plug right here, barrel rest for the 50 cal. Then over here, on this side, is the loader's hatch. So the loader would have sat in here, he would have loaded the 90mm gun from there. So, like I said, this being an early Patton, well, kind of standard Patton at the time during Vietnam, would have had this 90mm gun. I believe it's the M41 or M42 90mm gun. And so yeah, back here you got a little ventilation port right here. You have another barrel rest, and this actually would have been right here. Would have been mounts and antennas for your comms and all that stuff. And where the cameraman is standing down below him, you would have spots for a jerry can, as well as on the back right here, you have a bustle rack for storing bags, helmets, ammunition, any kind of things that you would want stored on the back of your turret. So that covers the turret, you guys. With that, we're gonna hop into the side of the vehicle. So on the side here, moving inside the vehicle, you got side storage bustle, you got side storage panels right here. This would be actually a spot for a Pioneer kit. You would have your shovel, axe, pickaxe, whatever you want in here. They would all be stored in here. This had a torsion bar suspension system, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 road wheels. And then you have the support wheels up top here as well. So you have the main wheels and then the support wheels that would basically just roll the track along. When the main battle tank basically adaptation was adopted, the drive sprocket was moved into the back. So you can see the drive sprocket's back here. Then you have the front support wheel in the front. So the front road wheel was moved to the front kind of towards the end of World War II. You start seeing that on like tanks like the M24 Chaffee and like the Walker Bulldog and stuff like that. So more your late World War II, Korean War era tanks would have had kind of this style where the drive sprocket's in the back instead of the front. So that does it for the side. Here, you guys. So the engine for this vehicle would have been the Continental V12 1790 air-cooled gasoline engine. Holy crap, that's a mouthful. 650 horsepower. We'll power this thing up to about 30 miles an hour, but we all know, you hear the veteran stories and stuff like that. If you take the speed governor off, take the no fun switch off, as I always like to say, you can probably get her up to about 40, 42 miles an hour. For a medium tank / main battle tank, that's not too bad from the 1950s and 60s. So that is the engine that you're working with here. Right here you have the travel lock, so if you want to spin the barrel around, be in travel lock or transport, you would lock the barrel into that. You have iron bolt lifting plugs on the back right here. this is actually missing it. We noticed this earlier. This is where your exhaust ports would be. So the exhaust will come out back here and here. It's kind of like the difference between the modifications of the early M48s and the later M48s, because you'll see some that have it right here and others where it'll come out back here. So down here would be access to your panels for the engines. You check fluids and stuff in here, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I do believe this right here is actually the talk box. I know the talk box was a standard thing when they adopted the main battle tank. So I think this is the talk box right here. And you have the rear fenders, and then access to your engine and your rear track links right here. So also you have your rear drive and blackout markers, just like you would see on two. One other thing I forgot to mention down here, this is also where your tow pintle would be. This one's missing the tow pintle, but it would have just like your regular hook and switch, just like we have today. You could tow other tanks to this, or if it needed towing itself, you would hook it up back here, as well as the iron bolt lifting plug, so it could be towed these vehicles. So that's going to do it for the back. With that, we're going to hop out and close out of this video, guys.
Hey, Sparky, what would you like to say to the people?
Oh, hey. So thank you, guys. We want to thank you for tuning in to episode 23 of Tank Chats. Today, we looked at the M48A1, my favorite main battle tank of history. The M48 Patton tank has always been my absolute favorite. So that's what we took a look at here today, guys. And I know some of y'all are going to roast me in the comments and say, he's not wearing a proper Vietnam War uniform. Well, yes, he actually is. That is your late Vietnam, actually, helmet cover. That would have been used during the fall of Saigon. So technically, he is historically accurate right now. And we got the good old trusted Vietnam CVC. Thank you guys again for tuning in. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.